For demo number 1, I'm going to invite Derek Fraser from Stellantis to come to the podium and introduce demo 1. Thanks, Derek.
Good afternoon, everybody. Again, Derek Fraser. I'm part of the Stellantis team. I'm North America and Global Director for User Experience and Ergonomics. And so this is really a great opportunity to collaborate with Mcity and the students at large. We're looking at, from our problem that we're looking at to solve, or at least be getting data from, is really looking at the intuitive handoff of autonomous driving. Of course, we have very prevalent in the market L2+, and it's starting to come into L3. But there's always things that we could curate from that experience perspective, things that we could continue to learn and be the foundation as we continue that autonomous driving experiences, what we could still build upon and improve from that experience for our customers. So I'm going to be able to provide that quick introduction to the team members and also what we're looking at specifically within this study itself. So from a research standpoint, of course, with Stellantis, myself and other great experts globally are supporting this initiative. As well, we got great faculty members that are helping us in turn. And to be very transparent, the grad students here are absolutely rock stars. And this is actually the great foundation of why we do that. It really is important for us to bring both industry and academia together. And I'm just going to say, without a doubt, if you have any opportunity to do these types of projects with Mcity, bringing in the students is absolutely critical and vital. And I can't say enough of, even at the short time frame that we've been working together, how great it's been holistically. And again, they're going to be able to talk about it real short after I stop talking, but they'll be able to demonstrate some of the great work they've done to this point in time. So what are we actually looking at? So again, it's that handoff that occurs that's really important, right? Of course, we know the modalities, right? May it be visual, auditory, haptic, but how can we clearly communicate what a situation is happening within that autonomous space that we could then hand off back to the customer very quickly? Also, what is that sequence? So is there a sequence combination that we could provide that for this scenario that we're looking at in our study? Is there something that we could do that may be unique that we haven't done to this point in time that could help us move forward? And how do they understand and respond to those types of feedback loops, right? So that they know that they've gone from one state to another and they need to now take control itself. And what is a role can be limited proactive vehicle maneuver. So with a vehicle maneuver happening autonomously, how can that maybe help attune the individual to when they're taking a handover, what can they do to make sure they're moving successfully? So the actual risk scenario that we're looking at is on a highway still, but we're looking at a sudden scenario. So something that may be jarring and quick, not something that's very progressive that the person may be aware of, or the vehicle itself from a sensor standpoint could see that something's happening. So may it be something falling off a vehicle, may it be that a vehicle actually did a maneuver and then all of a sudden there's a stopped vehicle in front of it. How do we respond and how can we make sure that that handoff is happening cleanly to the customer itself? So the demonstration, of course, will be using that state-of-art driving simulation that the Mcity team here will be demonstrating from VI grade. And we're actually utilizing non-engineer users, external participants to sit in that simulator and safely navigate a real AV. So this is really a good point that Greg and the team had made, is that you're in a different scenario at this point in time. When we're in a simulated straight environment, where you know there's no impact to something physical, there's a lot different mindset that people take on that may be a little bit more, let's say, free-flowing. They may not so concerned about the situation itself. When they know that there's a physical object that they're also manipulating and driving, that's a different whole scenario at that point. And of course, being in the simulated environment makes them safe, but at the same time knows that there could potentially be consequences, may actually change their behaviors that we're trying to look for. And again, as we know, the benefits here at Mcity are very clear, right? That evaluation of risk scenarios with public, but not putting them in harm's way is key. As well, that realism, right? Having it in that loop, in that test track, again, as I had mentioned, really makes it clear to the customer what they could potentially have that may change the way that they've overtaken or retake control of that vehicle itself. And then again, eliminating that time-consuming process, right? We're going to be able to get a lot of data real fast, and with the ability here at Mcity, that's going to help us in that procedure. So from a next standpoint, right before I start handing it off, right, we're actually going to be doing testing here in the fall timeframe, doing the analyzing, benchmarking, refining our prototypes, so working with the grad students here to refine what we're getting from a data standpoint and applying it into our next round of testing so that then we could take that data and see what's actionable for the industry at large, right? This isn't something that's going to be held tight to our vest. This is something that we could share. We're working with some of our counterparts down the road that we're looking at building a consortium as well so that we could start sharing this type of information freely. And I think it will be a very powerful impact and, of course, deliver that comprehensive results from a final report. So with that, I'm actually going to hand it off to the student team members here. And again, thank you, everybody, today.
Hi, we're 4 students from the University of Michigan. I'm Simi. This is Roshni, that's Rashmi, and this is Rashad. And for the past month, we've been working on a cluster design that's going to be in the Jeep Grand Cherokee. And we wanted our design to convey the personality of Jeep, which is bold and adventurous. So to start out, we did some competitive analysis, and we wanted to see what's currently going on in the market, some design trends that are happening, some strengths that we see in the designs, and some gaps that maybe we could address in our own designs. So this is the core design that we ended up at. As you can see, our gauges are inspired by the iconic Jeep fenders that you see in the exterior. We really wanted the exterior of the Jeep to really match the interior of our cluster design. The telltales are all at the top on the left and right corners, and the prindles at the bottom, so no matter what the state, these things are consistent throughout all screens. So for when ADA is active, we added some green because green conveys trust and safety, and that's what Jeep uses today. So we added it to the edges of our frame and as well right above the prindle. We also added a carpet of green so that the driver knows what lane that the car is cruising in. So for our alert state, we've added wherever you saw green, we've replaced it with red. We've also changed the gauges to red as well. And we've added a blur overlay along with a red gradient in the center so that the text and the icon is the most visible part because they only have a little bit of time to react. So we wanted to make sure that they see that very clearly. And so hopefully this works. So this is a video. So as you can see, we added a sound that we created because we wanted to have a multimodal approach so that the driver doesn't have to just rely on visuals to make to get their attention. So that's pretty much the work that we've been doing. It's been really great working with Stellantis and Mcity. They've really made our designs come to life, and we're really excited to see where it goes.
All right, so you've had a chance to meet the team. You talked, or the principal investigator, Derek Fraser, did some talking, and then the student team came up here and explained to you their part of this whole project. Now my job is to go ahead and first tell you what's going to happen, and then tell you what's happening while it's happening, and then hopefully answer some questions about what just happened after it's happened. So the reason I'm doing this is because this demo is actually very quick. It's a couple of minutes, and there's a lot going on. So without further ado, I'm going to try to introduce all of that to you now. Our scenario is a late reveal. We'll go into a little bit more detail later, but will be our vehicle, which is a real vehicle, will be driven autonomously. And at some point, the autonomous system will want the user or the driver to take over. Because the semi-truck that they're following will make an evasive maneuver revealing a disabled vehicle. So there are various parts to this scenario and our test. One of them is the VAI grade simulator that you've heard a little bit about. That gives us a fair bit of immersion for the test subject. And it also allows us to do teleoperation, which as Greg Stevens mentioned, and I think Derek Fraser mentioned it too, you just get better and more normal behavior from test subjects when they know that they're operating a real vehicle. I can tell you from firsthand experience, the first time I did the simulator, knowing that I was driving a $600,000 test vehicle with a real live person in it, there's a psychological weight there that just isn't there when you're using a simulation. Or pure simulation, I should say. And I'd be remiss not to mention our partners AWS and Verizon. They are providing the cloud infrastructure for this. So you're probably by now familiar with the local and the remote screens here. The whole premise of Mcity 2.0 is to bring people virtually here so that they can use our test facility. You heard that from Henry at the beginning remarks of the day. In order to do that, we share a lot of the state of what's going on, from the position of the vehicle to what the cockpit driver is doing at the simulator. We share all that up in the cloud. And we're doing that at something called Wavelength. There's an edge facility nearby. I believe it's in Dearborn or Southfield. And that happens to be close by. So we get a lot better latency from using that system as kind of our cloud brain, if you will, or our cloud state management. And then that information is shared with, in this case, either party, the vehicle on the facility or the simulator, which is actually right next door in our Aux building. But in reality, that simulator could be anywhere. And in fact, in the next demo you see, we'll be sharing simulators from Buffalo, New York, from the University of Buffalo. So the actors in this scenario is a real person in the VI Grid simulator next door. There is also a simulated world that's also provided by VI Grid in this particular instance. Our cockpit driver simulator will be wearing a VR headset. More on that in a bit. The real vehicle, MKZ, will be driven by AutoWare autonomously until the point of takeover. So when Darian, who's our cockpit driver, goes to grab the steering wheel, he will at that moment be teleoperating our real vehicle. There are also two other vehicles in the scene. They're both virtual, so you won't see them out on the facility behind you, but they're in the simulated world. And that is the semi-truck and then that disabled vehicle. That disabled vehicle will be white. The semi-truck will be blue. So a little bit more on the VI Grade simulator. As you can see here, this is a picture of Darian wearing that headset. And that green screen is a big part of the simulation. That green screen allows for Darian to see the entire world. Now he's going to see that world all around him. But where that green screen is, he can bring his hands up and he'll see his hands. And I think you'll actually get to see this because we'll be piping his view to you for the demonstration here today. He will also be able to see the steering wheel. It's awfully hard to grab a steering wheel that you can't see. He will also be able to see the instrument cluster directly behind the steering wheel, which will have the student's design on it, which we will also be piping to you. More on that in a little bit. And then there's also a console there that is playing the role of distractor. So this whole test hinges on the fact that the driver is completely distracted. And in general, it takes about 10 seconds to get somebody from completely distracted back with their hands on the wheel and get them more cognitively aware of what's going on. And the whole point of this process of this research project is to figure out if we can take that 10 seconds and get it down 8 seconds, 5 seconds. So we will be giving our team about 5 seconds out there. There are other things that you won't be able to witness here that are available on this simulator, active seatbelts. So we'll be looking into whether a tug from the seatbelt is something that can help us whittle a few seconds off that transfer time. There are also shakers. Those are usually engaged with the NVH and the audio in the system. That's for, we've all probably driven on gravel versus pavement. There's a different feel and a different sound to that. That's what's normally piping through those systems, but those can be overridden, and we can perhaps give the car a buzz for the driver. Probably a bad choice of words, but a little bit of a rumble, right? So that grab their attention. There are also air bladders in the seats. These are usually for simulating G-forces as you're turning around a curve, but those can be actuated as well to try to get the attention of the driver. And finally, there's steering wheel feedback, haptic feedback, a little bit of a 100 hertz, 500 hertz buzz that just, kind of feels like a cell phone on silent mode, right? Just another thing to try to grab the user's attention. But of course, that's only going to work if they have their hands on the wheel. So the next 3 slides describe the scenario from a bird's eye view. I figure I'd like you to have a mental model of what you're about to see, because again, this will go by very quickly. So the Eagle vehicle is following a semi, and that semi is going to swerve at the last minute to avoid that disabled vehicle. At that point, we'll go from the one state to another. We'll go to the alert state that the student showed you earlier. So we won't hear the beep, beep, beep like we just did here, but Darian will in the aux building next door. And Darian is going to then grab hold of the steering wheel and dodge that disabled vehicle. If Darian does not do that, there will be an imminent collision. So this happens to work out to be about 5 seconds. So we're really pushing the envelope here. The idea is to make this a very challenging scenario. I will remind everybody that Darian knows exactly what's going to happen here today. Our human test subjects in the future will not. So we may have to play with that time to collision, but we wanted to see how far we could push the envelope to see how challenging we could make this scenario for you today. So this is the last step here. And I'm looking at the live demo views. What I'm doing here is trying to show you what you're about to see. So on the left screen, you're going to get a trunk chase cam. And that chase cam is mounted to the vehicle. It will show you where the vehicle is going. The main point of having this is to kind of prove to you that there's a real vehicle involved in this. And it'll also be traveling right behind you. And on the right there, the remote, that's all from either inside. Actually, pardon me, it's all from the aux building next door. The one on the bottom right is what Darian sees through his VR headset. So there you're seeing the simulated world, you're seeing that instrument cluster, and you're seeing that console that's playing the role of distractor. At the top on the right is a much higher res view of that instrument cluster. We wanted that to be front and center. And the view we get out of Darian's headset is often occluded by the steering wheel or his hands. So we wanted a better view there. So at this point, I'm going to see if my team is ready to go. And we are ready. So we're going to go ahead and play that. I'm going to turn on my mic, so I'm going to wander down here because I need to be able to see both. Here is one view that I didn't tell you about, but this is what's happening next door at the aux building. I'm pointing down here, but I should be pointing up here. So that's Darian sitting in the cockpit, ready to go. And that's Raj down at the bottom there. He's operating that whole simulator. All that brightness is from the green screen. Now we have those views that I told you about. And as soon as the car starts moving, that means the demo is going. So we'll just wait for that to happen. I'm getting a nod from my team back there. And we're off. So at this moment, the real vehicle is controlled autonomously. And you can start to see that semi-truck on the bottom right there. As we get closer to that, you'll see that semi-truck begin to make an evasive maneuver. It'll happen in about 3 seconds. So you'll start to see it move a little bit. There it goes. And an evasive maneuver to get out of the way. And there's that disabled vehicle. At this point, Darian's getting that alert signal, and he's taking over at the last minute to just narrowly dodge that Volkswagen Beetle there in the middle of the road. So I forgot to promise you that we're going to do this a couple times because it goes by really quick. While we are resetting, you'll see our safety driver is now taking the vehicle back to the starting position. I want to give a call out to my team. So we've got Vince in the back there. I already introduced Darian and Raj. Alex is our safety driver for this one. None of this would be possible without all of their work. They're hard at work, and they've been making sure that this is ready to go whenever we say so. So many thanks to those guys. And here we go again. We can see that vehicle resetting. And I'm just going to narrate it again. And I encourage you to, whatever you were watching before, try watching a different screen this time. So we are off. And the movie that's doing the distracting is very dark. I only see a couple of lights there. Again, we're in autonomous mode right now. And we're coming up on that semi-truck. And that semi-truck is going to, in about a couple seconds here, start to make a move to avoid that disabled vehicle. And then suddenly now Darian is getting the take control of the beep, beep, beep. And he's moving out of the way. And there we go. So that is the demo that we prepared for you for the Stellantis handoff from level 2+3 to a human driver. And as Derek Fraser said earlier, our next steps are going to be how do we get this ready for real human factors, real human subjects, because what I said earlier, Darian knew exactly what was going to happen here today. I'm very uncertain about a person who hasn't been forewarned that they'll be able to make that adjustment in 5 seconds like Darian did. So I'm going to bring Derek Fraser back up here and see if there are any questions from the field. Oh, we have one right over here. Oh. Yeah, for the folks who are on Zoom.
Mark Gilbert, I'm Tree. What's your latency between the operator at the sim station and the vehicle?
That's an excellent question. What is our latency from the vehicle to the aux building? So we happen to be a little lucky in that we've got our aux building right here and our real vehicle right here. We're both pretty close to that wavelength facility. So the round trip right now is about 30 milliseconds on average, which is quite good. You want to be well beneath that 200 millisecond human perception latency. If we didn't have wavelength, what we're seeing out of Ohio, which is one of the regions that AWS offers, is about 50 milliseconds. So still very good, but 20 milliseconds is 20 milliseconds. So we use that edge facility, which is set up just for quick communications like we need. So thanks for that question. Any others? Yeah.
Thanks. Awesome that we have the students involved, right? I mean, that's a really big plus for this. It's a great learning experience for the students, also very useful for industry. Maybe talk a little bit more about what happens through the rest of the winter term, or excuse me, fall term we're in.
Yeah, so as the team had mentioned, we're going to go through a lot of design iterations, right? So as we test this, as we understand what our capabilities are, which are very strong, and just the demo here itself, what we plan to do is start doing actual external participants to kind of baseline ourselves to understand where are we at, okay, what adjustments can we make, iterate, refine that iteration so that then we can collect a larger sample size to make sure that we have clear understanding from a data standpoint where we're going. And then again, start sharing that information so that we could understand as an industry where's the right direction.
Awesome, thanks.
I'm actually asking for this, reiterating a question from somebody else. There's a safety driver inside of the vehicle, and who is really controlling the vehicle when they take over?
Excellent. So the question was, who is really controlling the vehicle throughout the test? So at the beginning, we have a safety driver in there, but that safety driver is hands off. AutoWare, the autonomous driving platform, is in control for the first half of that test. And then when the alert starts sounding, that's when Darian can take over. And the moment he puts any pressure on the steering wheel or presses the brake at all, that will automatically transition to control in a teleoperation mode. So at that point, once Darian reaches a certain threshold of difference from what the autonomous system is driving as far as steering wheel angle, once we get that state, then it transitions to the cockpit simulator driver.
So I want to make sure that Darren actually is in the auxiliary building. Darren is not the one inside of the vehicle.
Good point. Yes. We have one more right back here. Oh, hang on one second for the folks on Zoom. Yeah.
When the message says take control, does the vehicle automatically apply brakes also?
In this case, it does not. We are waiting for the driver to take over. In a real situation, that would entirely depend on what the ADAS system that is running, whoever built it. I would think that obviously in this scenario, we might see that disabled vehicle and start, or not we, but the autonomous system might see that vehicle and start applying the brake in that case. But for our case, we wanted to make sure that it was a very challenging scenario and it would really test that 10-second transfer of control.
Yeah, it seemed like less than 10 seconds. I mean, I was trying to time it when I saw the red take control. It even seemed like less than 5 seconds.
Yeah,
before.
I think so the moment that Darian in the aux building next door starts teleoperating the vehicle, the mode switches back to manual control. So it goes out of the alert state. The alert state is only active when the autonomous system is still driving and wants the user to take over. So I think that comes out to about 4 seconds. Maybe you timed it around 3.5 or 4. Perfect. Any other questions? A couple more here.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, like, from a human factors perspective, is the argument for the live vehicle more to add extra vigilance to the driver? Because I would imagine if you're just trying to test the human experience, all you really need is the virtual simulation, right?
That's exactly it. We just want to be able to see if that utilization of a physical object that they're controlling, and they know, hey, there is a potential consequence. It's not just bits of information that I'm worried about, right? Does that change at all, right? And so we're in that scenario where we could do that here at Mcity that we wouldn't be able to do elsewhere. But to your point, I agree, right?
Maybe you're not testing anything else using that physical. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
So in addition to, adding the realism so that the participants don't think, hey, this is just a video game, right? They're actually driving a vehicle. The other thing is we don't have to model the vehicle in the simulation world, right? Because all the physics are what physics happen on the real vehicle. So we don't have to model the tires and the dampers and all those sorts of things. So that saves us a bunch of modeling time. We also don't need to model the feature itself, right? So AutoWare was running, that's the autonomous vehicle stack. It was running on the vehicle. So again, we don't have to bring that into the simulation world. So the fewer things you have to tell your engineers to go out and model, the faster they can actually start doing testing and get results.
I think we have one more right here.
So what's the real world feasibility of this one? In a vehicle, I mean, it's safety certified. It goes through a lot of testing. Here, there's lots of outside infrastructure and technology that may not be safety certified. How are you taking into account all that?
We're really looking at that human factors only at this point, because to your point, and even to the question of, hey, well, when the vehicle actually start braking, right? That's a very realistic scenario, right? What we're trying to understand and be able to get back that information is really from that human factor standpoint of, hey, now that I've introduced a physical vehicle, does that change the behaviors at all? Something that we're not seeing within the simulated environment, right? And then from there, that will allow us to kind of iterate, kind of play with some of those modalities of trying to bring back the individual into that scenario. Does that change as well, right? So something that we would say maybe a more haptic feedback, maybe a quicker response time. Does that really happen with a physical scenario that we just may not be able to get in a simulated environment only? Yeah.
I do have something to add to a previous question in the back about the braking. I had forgotten that we had added a feature. So there is a brake pulse that is part of trying to get the driver's attention, and that would be modeled kinematically through the system and then apply a tug to the seatbelt. So that is something that we're thinking about, but that's not exactly what you asked. You asked, wouldn't the automated system apply braking? But we are also looking at applying braking as a way of getting the user or the driver's attention. All right, any other questions? This is great. These are great questions. I love it.
This is more a general compute question. How much of the compute capability is sitting on the vehicle? Is there sort of an AI on chip on board versus the AI piece being off board?
Gotcha. Great question. The question is about compute and where it lives and what its roles are. So our test vehicles are very general purpose. So we have two computers in the trunk actually, and then our simulator has, I think, about 12 to 15 computers that are all on the same network that are all doing different roles. But on the vehicle for the AutoWare system, that is run by one of the computers, which has some NVIDIA graphics processing units on board. And the other one does as well. The other one kind of handles our ROS, robotic operating system, pub sub, controlled, so that several different research groups can come in and just kind of plug into that. AutoWare uses that as well. So ROS on one, AutoWare on the other, and then they communicate back and forth. Inside for our simulator, there are several rendering machines. It's a pretty beefy rendering machine that has high GPU capability that is driving the VR headset. And the same thing is true for the view that you get in the, well, that's part of the headset, but we also have external cameras that we can set up for other demos that will render the scene as well. And those are fairly high-end systems as well. Did I answer your question? Okay, excellent. Okay. All right, I think we'll move on to our next demo. Thank you, Derek. Yeah.